and welcome to another EstimateRocket Success Webinar. Today's topic is going to be strategies and tips for finding, keeping, and growing team members. As mentioned, I'm Tom Drost, the president of Logical Engine. We're the creators of EstimateRocket and JobRocket. EstimateRocket is cloud-based mobile and desktop software that enables service contractors to manage their projects from lead to paid. You can generate professional estimates on-site and create proposals, work orders, and invoices with a click. It also includes scheduling, automated email marketing, contract e-signing, and credit card payments. JobRocket is a manpower planning and scheduling tool that works hand in hand with EstimateRocket once you land the big jobs. It's a must for contractors managing multiple crews and forecasting manpower needs months in the future. Well, today's topic is going to be one of my first topics that doesn't actually talk about EstimateRocket, so it'll be fun. We were asked to speak at the PDCA Northeast Council meeting last week, and the topic of the council meeting was dealing with labor shortage or contractor labor shortage. I thought I could reach out to some of our EstimateRocket customers and ask them to share their best tips and strategies for finding, keeping, and growing team members. It was very well received, and I thought it made sense to present it as one of our EstimateRocket Success Webinars. A recording of this webinar will be available when it's over, and if you just request it or go to our YouTube channel, that's where we'll post it. First of all, my sincerest thanks go out to the customers and friends that helped me with this webinar by sharing their ideas and stories about their approaches to dealing with the labor shortage. I think all companies in the contract and service contracting businesses, no matter what the trade these days, are definitely suffering from a challenge of finding and retaining good employees or good team members. So it's a very timely topic, I think, and again was a big topic of the council meeting. So first of all, you're not alone. As I shot out some information, some questions to some of our customers around the country, I was kind of overwhelmed with the number of responses that I got back, and it was very interesting listening to and reading the responses from people from around the country. So definitely found some regional differences in the way people are handling this problem, and also some regional challenges as well, which we'll talk about when we go through it. So we definitely got responses from around the country. I didn't have time to get them from every state, but EstimateRocket does have customers in every state currently. So at some point maybe we'll expand on this a little bit and see what the differences are. So one of the things that got me an interest in this topic was I was about a year and a half ago. I was down in New Jersey visiting an EstimateRocket customer, and arrived at 6 a.m. I was a masonry contractor, and I was gonna shadow him for the day, the owner of the company, and just see what a day in his life was like. And first thing in the morning, we're in the garage, and all the team members are gathered around, and they're making assignments and getting everybody ready to go. There's also a group of people building a cinder block wall in the garage, and kind of right out in the middle of the floor. And I looked at Sal and I said, "Sal, what's going on?" And he said, "Well, we can't find masons, so we're growing our own." And that seems to be the trend that I'm seeing, certainly from around the country. And so there's definitely a new emphasis on, how can we create new tradesmen, and you'll definitely see, as I said, some similarities between what people are experiencing in different parts of the country. So first, I've got a couple questions just for you to think about. These are things that, as you're going through the process of thinking about how you're going to deal with labor shortage, these are some good things to know and to think about. And this presentation was originally done for the PDCA, so painters are definitely one of the key types of contractors that we're discussing. So when you read the questions, you can certainly just put your own trade in there, and I think the questions will be just as applicable. So how many painters did you hire? How many painters left you this year? Now the tougher ones. What's the cost to get a new painter up to speed, or painter, mason, wallboard, taper, whatever that trade is? What is the cost to get that person up to speed, on board, up to your standards? What's the time to get a new employee or team member up to speed? And when I say up to speed, I mean up to your standards. So that's another question not written here is, what are your standards? You know, what are the qualifications of someone that you are going to hire, or someone that once you've hired you need to get them up to a certain qualification level? It's important to define those things. If you don't have them defined, then it becomes very difficult to know what a good employee is from, or a good team member is from a mediocre team member. What's the average number of years an employee works for your company? That's an important question for a couple of reasons, but probably the most important reason is that it's expensive. Turnover is expensive, and if you answer the first couple questions, you'll realize that it costs you a lot of money every time you have to turn over a person and train and groom a new one. So it's really a key factor, and we'll talk about retaining people a little bit later in the presentation. Do you have a training program in place for new team members? Do you have ongoing training and skill building programs in place? So again, really important questions. It takes less effort than you think it does to put something in place, and it can be as simple as a brief outline of things, or it can be as involved as the actual, detailing out of exactly what skills and at what time point and at what production rate you want people to be able to operate at. So again, these are just some kind of background questions that you need to start getting a handle on for your company, so that you can address some of these labor shortage issues, and you'll hopefully see why later. So first up, labor strategies. So finding, keeping, growing, and subcontractors. Those are three strategy pieces. Plan is one of the key things that you have to do throughout all of this process. If there's no plan, then you're not going to know when you got there. So finding, it's hard, it's time consuming, it's expensive, it's risky. You hire a new guy, they don't work out, new person, they don't work out, you got to go find another one. You may have paid to find that person, now you got to pay to find someone else, and time is one of the biggest factors. Next is keeping. Keeping your employees may be expensive, but it's very cost effective. If you keep the good ones and nurture the good ones and turn them into long-term team members, there's a huge payoff for that. Growing, when there's nobody around and you can't find people that are qualified to do what you want them to do, then you're going to have to grow them. And again, that falls into the planning category. You're going to have to start planning out how you're going to train people, how you're going to get them up to speed, what are your standards, what do you need to do to help these people grow and to be great team members for you. Growing in a lot of markets it probably fits your available resources better. So growing, finding means you're going to, in some cases, you're going to go out and find someone who's experienced that you don't have to train. The challenge with finding is that in many cases, finding them, depending upon your company, may not work, because bringing some people that are skilled may also carry the baggage of having worked with systems that are very unlike your own, and they may not work up to your standards, and that's really critical. Growing, on the other hand, if you can hire for attitude, find enthusiastic, hardworking team members that really want to become part of something, then teaching them the skills can be well worthwhile. And while you teach them the skills, you get to teach them the skills your way and with your systems, so that you have a consistent performance throughout your organization. Again, really kind of critical things to groom and grow your success for the future. Subcontractors. Subcontractors can play a valuable part in your resource list, and there are some companies who've gone very heavily to subcontractors. There are other companies who use subcontractors strategically. So perhaps there's a job that's way too big for you to do in-house, but you want to do it. A subcontractor might be a good choice for that job. Or you've got a short-term need that you want to fill, but it's not necessarily going to warrant you hiring a full-timer. So subcontractors can be a very valuable part of your strategy. They carry their own challenges, but certainly using them effectively can be a big help to to your team and to supporting your team. And plan, again, you have to start planning for some of these things. Hiring, 2 days after you took the job that you need 8 new people to satisfy is just not going to work. So what I've done in between slides is intersperse some of the responses from some of our customers and friends that have helped me out and responded. I've used initials to protect the innocent, but I'd like you to read through the slides just to get a feeling for what they're saying, and I'll summarize and make some comments about them as we go. So I call this one Thoughts from Your Peers. And everybody responded in a slightly different format to me, so I've tried to keep their words pretty much original, have shortened them in certain cases just for the presentation purposes. And I did enjoy long conversations on the phone with almost everyone who replied in writing, and took copious notes, and you'll get the results of those. So this first slide, is not atypical. We suck at this. We're picky, and we need them badly. So that kind of sums up the whole feeling of where we're getting people, how we're getting people, and the fact that we really are desperate to have people. Culture. You're going to hear that through almost every single person that replied. There's a new and very increased emphasis on building a culture, and you'll see as we go through the slides some reasons for that. So finding people, we're hiring them for culture. Keeping them revolves around culture. Culture is, and it means a lot of different things to different people. One of the most important things it means is a positive environment and a respectful environment. Very important pieces. Growing, we have some opportunities to improve this. So again, the other nice thing is that the responses I got were very honest in terms of what we are doing and what we probably could do more work on. So next slide, MD and MH are from the same area down in Florida, not competing, but in Florida. And MD's responses, things like our workers and their friends are our best resource opportunities. We give them incentive. Now I've seen throughout the slides, you'll see a lot of different incentive programs, everywhere from $100 for a keeper, as they call them, to $1,000 paid out over the course of a year. So a variety of different incentive programs to bring friends and family into the business. But in terms of keeping them, building the culture to retain them, pay them on time, give them steady, continuous work, sometimes even when the work isn't there. And again, that's a difficult choice to make, but when people grow to respect and understand and appreciate what you're doing for them, and you respect and appreciate them for what they're doing for you, it leads to an environment of loyalty and long-term employee retention. So culture cannot be underemphasized. It's a very, very important piece of your strategy going forward. The next slide is, I call it challenges and influencers. So what are the things that go into how you build your team and what your team looks like and what it's made up of? Seasonality is a very, very big challenge now. If you're in an area where you've got 4-season work that's pretty level, then seasonality doesn't give you a huge impact. You may have some minor ups and downs. But if you're a company that does both interior and exterior work is going to be a lot slower in the winter months than it is in the warm months. So you've got to prepare for that, and that's a real challenge for people in harsh environments where winter is just not conducive to some large percentage of their annual business. Your market is a big influencer. So what's your market like? Are there a lot of young people, or are there not a lot of young people? Is it an overeducated market? Is it a undereducated market? Is it a high-paying market? All those things are going to go into influencing what your availability of people are. Timing, somewhat goes along with seasonality, but timing is an important consideration because of the fact that you can't just hire someone in a day. You have to factor in timing and make sure that you're planning ahead so that you're not hiring, worrying about hiring at the last minute. It's a very difficult thing to hire at the last minute. That may be a situation where if you're desperate, you bring in a subcontractor just for a project. But timing is very important, and timing to time properly, you need to plan. Another influence or challenge is resistance. So as you're trying to grow your team, it's important that existing team members are open to bringing in new team members. And if you're hiring for attitude instead of skill, you're going to need some help from your team members to help build the skills of those new employees or new team members. So, resistance is something that you're going to have to deal with through your development of culture and development of your team mentality. Trade-offs are simply, do I go experienced at a higher cost that aren't necessarily going to fit in with my company culture, or do I go with non-experienced at a lower initial cost that are open to being part of a culture or want to be part of a culture? So those are all things that, challenges and influences that go into those decisions that we're going to make as we bring on team members. Another thoughts from our peers. AN is in the Pacific Northwest. Recruiting is tough, very influenced by seasonal business. Almost a 50% impact on this particular person's workforce in the off season. How do you deal with that? And her plan is partly to start to develop a stronger seasonal workforce and looking at local colleges, community colleges, and high schools for those types of people. Again, bringing them in, having the culture be a place where people understand that the people coming in for the summer or seasonal work are not competition to them. They are helping the company be strong and be a full year-round company, even though the work may not support the whole team year-round. So, building that culture is really, really a critical thing. And as I said, almost every single person that responded used the word culture one or more times in what they said. One of the reasons that this person is very interested in the colleges and community colleges is apparently there's some statistical research that says that at least 5% of people who start out on a track that looks like they would not end up, being full-time painters or full-time service contractors, end up staying with the profession. So there's definitely some statistical support that says that approach isn't a complete dead end, that you may end up actually finding some great team members that in the long run do want to stay with your company even though they started out with you working, just summers. And so next team member, the biggest way they find new people is a bonus. This is one that pays $1,000 after 1 year of employment, but they pay it out in a series of payments. So there's a 30-day, a 6-month, and a final balance after a full year. So that kind of spreads the cost of that out and eases that pain of that initial hire. But certainly if you get someone who stays a year and fits all your cultural needs, that's not a lot of money to find a good person. Talk about it with all your employees. So constantly be telling your employees, your friends, your suppliers, everybody, hey, we're always looking for people. We're looking for good people. And be prepared to describe what the attributes of those people are. You need to have, that's part of your planning process, is to decide, hey, what does a team member, look and sound like? And you need to be able to define that. In the same way that you know how to define and sell your services to your customers, you also need to be able to sell your company to prospective employees. So you've got to spend some time on not only on the elevator pitch for your customers, but the elevator pitch for your employees, so they know what they may be getting into. And you got to make it easy for other people to convey to their friends, family and friends, in order to spread the message. Compensation is another area. In an interesting area though, so no one wants to be the lowest paid in their area, but flat pay rate is not the only consideration that people have when they're looking for a job. Benefits are important, stability is important, knowing that you're going to get paid every week, critical factors. So sometimes having, a huge pay rate and then finding out that their turnover is incredibly high is not nearly as attractive as a good pay rate that is going to have longevity as long as you're doing the job properly. So, highest pay rate is nice, but steady pay rate is even more important than a high pay rate. Benefits, again, more you can, if you can offer benefits, great. Culture is another huge part of compensation. Being a great place to work, huge part of your compensation. More and more of today's younger workers or potential team members really care about culture and really care about working for a place that's a great place to work for, working for a place that does things for the community. That's a really important part of hiring. Heard a great presentation actually at the PDCA Council regarding working with the millennial generation and some of the things that they're looking for and that are important to them, and certainly culture and giving back and being part of something that's contributing to their community is a really important aspect of what they want to be a part of. Reviews, again, another important part. Reviews give you the opportunity to give people feedback, to let them know how they're doing, to let them know that you appreciate them, and to let them know how they can keep improving and helping your company to be better and stronger, which helps everyone. Growth plans, that's another thing that people want to know about, is where can I go? What's my path here? What are the opportunities? Very important if you can put that in place. And finally, all of this needs to go into some sort of a written plan. Again, it doesn't have to be a 300-page document, but a couple pages outlining what your compensation package is all about and what your company is all about is a really important tool for helping bring on new employees. So this contributor, actually I think he's on the line right now, was team building was really, really important. But as you read, culture, all of these things, I don't know that the word culture is in here, but these are all things that relate to culture and building an environment, a supportive environment that people want to be a part of, and that's key, really key. Benefits, I think one of the other topics about benefits is being able to give your employees an annual benefit statement, because people don't tend to realize what the sum of all their benefits are. And there are a lot of things that fall under benefits that they might not consider until they see it listed out on a piece of paper that says, hey, here's what our company did compensation-wise for you this year. And that can be a really important selling point for your company as well. So really, some really key elements there. Another one, talking about you need to invest time looking for employees just like you do for clients. It's a never-ending job. Build a reputation of your company being a great place. There were a variety of different inputs that I got regarding the different advertising methods. So most people said that Craigslist is pretty hit or miss. This particular gentleman runs 2 ads, one that's a real simple, hey, I need a painter, another one that's a little more detailed, and he gets different people responding to the different ads, and definitely pays for looping those ads back to the top. Didn't have any luck with ZipRecruiting, and I did hear across the country different results for ZipRecruiting. So in your area, it may be worth checking out just to see how effective that is in your area. Most of these advertising vehicles will vary from area to area. This was a good one, I thought. Watch the weather. A lot of companies don't pay their people all the time, and they don't pay them when there's a bad weather day and they can't work, and they don't pay them when there's a lot of bad weather coming. he actually checks the weather reports, and if he sees a long period of rain coming during the exterior season, he puts an ad out, because those people who are maybe great people may not be getting paid for a couple weeks, and it may make them want to look for a job. So, I guess timing is everything, but he does that in advance. And back to the planning concept, create a hiring packet. And again, it doesn't have to be a 300-page document, but put together a list of all the things you do when you're ready to go out and start looking to hire. Can be used, on a regular basis, and then you're not scrambling for it every time you go to look for a new associate or team member. Training and skill building. So if you are going to end up hiring for attitude instead of for skills, then your training and skill building is going to become a critical factor in your company. So you got to start thinking about, what kind of a training or skill building program do we have? And that falls into a couple of different areas. Frequency, how often are you training? Do you have a regular schedule? Do you have formal plans for, hey, each month we're going to work on a skill, and here's the list of skills, here's the benchmarks, here's how we're going to rank you. Skill challenges, make it fun, make it a competition, and see where that goes. And reward knowledge sharing. If you can find ways to reward knowledge sharing between your team, that is a great, and sometimes it's just a pat on the back or a thank you, is all it takes. But when your good team members are sharing their knowledge with new team members or less skilled team members, that's how you build your company, and you build that team into a solid unit. Personal and company growth. If you can, again, lay out a plan for your team members so they know where they're going and what their opportunities is, that's always a great thing for them to be hearing and listening to. And finally, once again, plan. All these things fall under the planning concept. You got to take a little bit of time to map out a plan for these things. And these plans can be very simple. Start them out short. If you're not doing if you have no training program right now, then put one down that happens once a quarter or once every 2 months, and then build on that. And if you have a training program, review it and see what you can do to, can you make it better? Can you improve on it? Can you improve on the output of it? And be getting even more benefit out of your training program. So next peer slide here is, this was I thought was an interesting one. I kind of left this one very complete. Definitely is worth reading. It was a little bit different approach than a lot of the feedback that I got, but it really states it in a clear and concise way. And I think this type of a statement is almost something that could go into your employee handbook or a handout that you give to your new painters, because it's mainly, again, about team and culture building, but it's also about responsibility and accountability and ownership. Certainly, giving a complete and clear scope of work and keeping accountability. Those are pretty fundamental approaches to managing your workforce. If a customer gives a question back, direct it to the painter and let the painter actually answer the customer's questions. Don't cut the painter out of it. Give them ownership and responsibility for it. Keeping a fair exchange. Again, these are pretty important conceptual things about making people feel good and empowering them to be better and to do a great job. Really, really important things. Consistent training and certification. They're building a certification program so that new employees coming in have a benchmark to achieve, so that you have a consistent workforce and you're getting consistent output from the employees. And that helps to make people feel like they're not carrying, one good guy is not carrying all the weight. There's a formal plan in place to make sure that everybody has a certain skill set. Couple other ideas: hiring high school and college students. Again, that's certainly a good approach depending upon where your area is. They may only be good for seasonal work. In some areas, if it's a college town, you might be able to get some time from them even during the indoor season. But certainly something to examine. If there aren't enough people in your trade, then you've got to go find ways to grow them. So, one of the things I didn't hear a lot, and I think is going to become more and more important, is get involved with your local high school or local trade school and see what you can do to build a program there. If they don't have any sort of a program, see what you can do to build a program there and become a resource that people look up to. Most of the people who are our EstimateRocket customers are successful entrepreneurs, and you know what? That's exciting. And you don't realize a lot how exciting that is to a high school student that may or may not be going to college, or may want to go to college but may be looking for alternatives. It's a powerful, you have a powerful stories to tell, and you're the entrepreneurs in the service contracting business. They are what makes America great. They are one of the things behind, what I love about this country is, you have an opportunity. If you work hard and you're fair and you're good to people, you can really go a long way and have a great life. So more of our young people need to hear that, and need to hear what it's a lot. It can be a lot more fun than it may look like. So I think it's up to us to help change try and change the perception that people have of becoming a service contractor, because I think there's some really, really great opportunities there. And finally, if the people working for you are happy, they're constantly going to be selling your company for you. So that gets back to building the culture, making sure that you're a good place to work for, and people remember that. Good painters and carpenters looking for a great place to work. Again, looping back on culture again, and building a place that people want to be, a place where people are not disrespectful or disrupting. I mean, everybody wants a safe place to work where they can grow and they can contribute, and not have a bad time and have a lot of disrespect. Certainly, and word of mouth is always, as you know, with your customers, also works as a place to work. If you sound like the best company to work at, then you're going to have a much easier time recruiting people and getting people to come to work at your company. So all those things, all of these things, and this amazingly great feedback that I got from everybody, with a pretty common thread about building your team and building your team's culture, and that's a really important aspect. So just to kind of summarize what all the feedback I got was, culture, you got to build one now. If you don't have one, build it. If you have one, write it down. I mean, make it something that you can review and look at and say, hey, what are the aspects of our culture, and what does that mean? Prospect, you got to always be prospecting for new people. Figure out your tools and your methods to always be looking for new potential employees. Training, you need to formalize it. You need to have a regular ongoing training program, not just for inexperienced people, but for experienced people. I mean, everybody benefits from training ongoing. Respect, be a company that people want to work with, work at, be the go-to company. I want to work there. Use the velvet rope principle. You got to get past the velvet rope if you want to work for us. That's the kind of company you want to be. You want everybody standing at the velvet rope, waiting to get into your company. Then you're in a good situation. Take the long-term view. So if you're depending upon your market, depending upon labor that's available, you may have to grow your own. And so if you do have to grow your own, then you're probably going to be better off if you can, because you can take that longer term view, you can grow people the way you want to grow them, and you can build them into long-term employees or long-term team members. I have a hard, team member or associates is a great term. I still have a hard time not saying employees, but the reality is team members, everybody wants to be a part of a team. Not everybody wants to be an employee. So that concept of team members is a very important one. Team building. You're a team. If you're part of a team, you're part of something bigger than you, and being part of something that's bigger than you is important to most people. Incentive, another tool to use. Incentive plans can be a real challenge, but again, once you've taken the time to lay something out, they don't have to be huge incentives, but it's important for people to be appreciated and rewarded for what they're doing and how they're contributing. Hire for attitude and train the skills. Another, that definitely seems to be the trend. Advertising network. Get out there and constantly be putting the name out there and looking for people. My last slide was for the PDCA to elevate interest in the profession. I think, and when I mentioned earlier about going around to local trade schools or high schools and find out what the opportunities are to speak to students, I think it's up to successful contractors to do that. I mean, you're the salespeople for the industry. You're the people who can go out there and say, hey, this is, I'm doing great. I'm working hard, but I have a great life. I have a great family. I have time to spend with my family, and I'm helping continue to build and maintain the country that we live in. So it's a great message and a great story. Don't be afraid to get out there and tell it. I think there's a lot of inspiration out there, and I think a lot of young people can be inspired by the opportunities to get into the profession. So that's it. That's pretty much all I have. I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks again, everybody, for attending, and I look forward to seeing everybody at the next EstimateRocket Success Webinar. Take care and have a great afternoon.